listening to Podium Podcast with Simon Hartley and Tom May. This is the show that invites the world's top athletes to discuss life in and after professional sport. Podium Podcast is brought to you by True Potential Wealth Management. To find out more, visit domorewithyourmoney.co.uk.
Welcome to another episode. This one, I am flying solo. No Tom May for this one. I'm also, interestingly, recording the introduction for this particular episode after interviewing our guest. So I already know that this is a high energy, high octane conversation. I already knew that the guy was an absolute legend in his sport. He's a try-scoring machine. And if you've ever watched rugby league, I'm sure the name Chariots Offiah is one that you're already familiar with. You may not have known, however, that since retiring from rugby, as well as some punditry, he's got a property portfolio. He's now involved in an electric vehicles business. So I'm really, really keen to find out how he's transitioned his performance mindset across into business. Let's find out.
Martin, welcome. Thank you very, very much for joining us. It's great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
My pleasure. Doing fine. Up early this morning, had my cold shower, been for a morning walk, done some exercise, and I'm ready to attack the day.
Good work. Good work. I'm a huge fan of sporting nicknames, and I've got to say yours is one of the best. Where did it come from? Did you immediately walk into the dressing room and it was your nickname overnight, or was there somebody? Because there's usually a king of banter somewhere that comes up with these things.
It's kind of funny. It didn't come from the change room. When I didn't have a nickname when I was playing rugby union. I think no one knew who I was when I was playing rugby union. I've still got the newspaper cutting when I signed for Widnes, and it just said Widnes sign promising winger from Roslyn Park, and that was literally two lines in the Daily Telegraph, and I've kept that newspaper cutting to this day. I've got it in a frame on my wall. And when I joined Widnes, a player called Tony Myler used to call me Tinner, Tin Can Man, Martin, Tin Can Man. That's still my email address to this day is tincan100. Chariots was just something that, you know, I wasn't a Floyd Mayweather. You know, I didn't create my own nickname. Chariots was something that was bestowed on me. I think it was, Spectators. The first time I'd ever seen it in print, I think, was in the Daily Mirror, I think, and they made me do a big photo shoot dressed up in a Centurion's outfit in a wheelbarrow because I couldn't afford the chariot, and then it said Chariots of Fire, and obviously, it goes back to the days when I was playing rugby union at Middlesex Sevens. I think Colin Welland, who wrote the theme, not the theme tune, he wrote the screenplay to the movie Chariots of Fire. He was at Twickenham that day in '87 when history has it that it was the first time that Swing Low was ever sung at Twickenham, the first recorded time. I'm sure it was sung there before, but there's no footage of it. And, the RFU museum curator contacted me during lockdown and said, we found this footage, because everyone thought it was sung the first time in '88 when Chris Oates scored that hat-trick for England against the against Ireland. And, that was the first time. And as I say, it was something that was, just called to me. The first person who actually called it to my face, I think, was Ian Botham. I remember once when I was doing Questions Sport, he said to me, "You're right, Chariots." And I was like, "Is that my name?" It was a weird experience. My mates call me Gibber, all my sort of rugby mates at Wigan, I say Tinner, but it was something which, would only seen in the press. And even now when, there's ever talk on TV about famous sporting nicknames, I think it's fits all, isn't it? One size fits all. And Chariots of Fire comes into play. So, it's, it's one of your claims to fame is having a famous sporting nickname. And Colin Welland, I'd say, he went on to write the foreword to my autobiography in 1997, who's no longer with us. I'm good friends with his son, Christy Welland, and I believe that I'm doing a talk in Wigan sometime in 2023, and Christy is going to bring the actual Oscar to the audience with I'm doing. So it'll be a chance to have. I've never been in the same room with the Oscar for Chariots of Fire, so I think it's a nice little thing. So people who come to that talk at the in February, I think at the DW, will be able to get a picture with Chariots of Fire and the Oscar for the film Chariots of Fire. I think when Colin Welland finally, I think he made that comment, is it, the British are coming. I think they're still coming movie-wise. But yeah, as you can tell, I love a bit of history.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I was, I think it was at Crystal Palace I came across Fitz Hall, and that is genius as well. One side is just, that's another stroke of genius. I think that one did come out of the dressing room from memory, but I can't remember. It might have been Kit Simons or somebody who was the king of banter there. I know you are still really passionate about rugby league. What did you make of the World Cup?
I'm passionate about rugby in general. I know that I'm seen, as a rugby league player because of all the things that I've done, within, the sport of rugby league, and obviously having the statue and the Wigan and play for Great Britain and such things. But, my first love, was playing rugby union. I got to meet a few years ago Phil Bennett, JPR, Gareth Edwards. To walk into that room and for all those, because I'm a kid of the 70s, I went to boarding school in the 70s, and the Welsh, that great Welsh team were my heroes. To walk into a room at Sky Sports, I think over a decade ago, and for all those legends to just say, hi Martin, was a big thing for me. But yeah, I'm very proud of my union heritage, very proud of my league heritage. Rugby league, what it has done for not only the sport of rugby as a whole, it's been very innovative, and it was very innovative, with the Rugby League World Cup, having, the Disability World Cup, the women's game, the wheelchair game, and the men's game all happening, at the same time. Was groundbreaking, and I think that's something that other sports would do in the future. Rugby league has always had to be agile. It's always had to respond to the changing circumstances. I remember back in 1996, the first Super League season, and I think the second game on a Saturday, Wigan played Oldham, and I scored the first try awarded by the video official. That's part of history. People don't think about things that now. I was at Twickenham recently to watch England play quite woefully against South Africa, which led to the demise of Eddie Jones. And I'm seeing goal line dropouts and 50-20s. And I'm thinking, these are innovations that rugby league had. Rugby league has always had to innovate. It paid its players 100 years before rugby union. If rugby union didn't play its players, then if rugby league did pay its players back in the day, then, we wouldn't have had the likes of myself playing rugby league. We wouldn't have had the likes of Brian Bevan playing rugby league. We wouldn't have the likes of Tom Van Vollenhoven playing rugby league. We wouldn't have, the likes of Billy Boston. So these are all the greatest try scorers in the sport of rugby league would not have played that sport if they didn't have reason to switch codes. And, so that's what rugby league has always had to do.
We hope you don't mind us interrupting this episode with a very brief shout out to our partners at the Podium Podcast, True Potential Wealth Management. At True Potential Wealth Management, their mission is to help you do more with your money. Expert financial advice, innovative investments, and leading technology are all designed to put you in control and help you achieve your financial goals. To find out more about their specialist advice, investment opportunities and pension services, visit domorewithyourmoney.co.uk. That's domorewithyourmoney.co.uk. With investing, your capital is at risk. True Potential Wealth Management LLP is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Thanks for listening. Now, let's get you back to this week's show.
The history of our both sports, is what has brought me here today. And, to be able to talk to you, to be able to share my story. And I say, where we've come from and the things that we've had to endure make us who we are today. And as I say, hats off to the rugby league for being that bold, for being that creative to do that. I know that maybe COVID and what we've been through. There's been so much sport around now with the Women's Rugby Union World Cup, all the Rugby League World Cup competitions. We've obviously got the Football World Cup. There's been so much sport because of, things being pushed due to what we've been through as a world. And, in some ways, that's creativity.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that sometimes you don't realise where these things have come from. Like you said, the video ref, everybody's got a VAR now, or, cricket have got a review process. And when you rewind it back, you're right, these things have to start somewhere. And the fan experience in British sport, I think, was also sort of kick-started by rugby league. There weren't really cheerleaders or anything like that in the fan experience either.
No, I mean, when you think music at games, I was at Twickenham again and I was hearing music played, in between, the passages of plays and lots of things. And I think, God, even Wigan, when we talk about physiotherapy, when we had Dave Fever was our physio. And, when we talk about nutrition and ice baths and things like that. And Dave Fever went on to become physio at Man United. When you just think of your world in the bubble that you are in, you get skewed, created your perceptions and everything skewed slightly. It's not real. And sometimes you forget where we came from and, all the things that people had to endure. People talk to me about, obviously, what I had to endure, playing rugby league in the 80s. Coming from a rugby union environment and then going to play rugby league up north. And, that was an experience. And people say to me, oh, well, man, you had to endure so much. And I think to myself, no. When I think back to what people like James Peters had to endure, he was the first black person to get selected for the England team. There wasn't another black player selected till Chris Otey in 1988. Yeah, I mean, what he must have endured? You know what I mean? It's like, you can look at your glass half full or half empty. I'm just thankful that I got the opportunity to play. If I was born in 1850, I wouldn't have been allowed to play. You know what I mean? So it's all about your perception, how you skewer things, and understanding where you've come from. Realizing that you are a product of all the positive and negative things that happen to you. Sometimes you think that you achieved in spite of the hurdles you have to, overcome. But no, life is always about the mixture of benefits and negatives that you have, and that concoction, that cocktail of positives and negatives, and what made you. And sometimes, in my early career, I didn't think that. I thought that I achieved in spite of when that wasn't the case.
Yeah. I completely agree that our perception drives an awful lot. Our response to circumstance drives an awful lot. And it's incredible to watch people who were in essentially the same position with the same stuff happening to them, but they get vastly different outcomes because of the way that they think about it, the way they perceive it, the way they respond to it. $64 million question on rugby before we chat about some business. How on earth do we beat the Aussies in rugby league?
How on earth do we beat the Aussies in rugby league? I've come close on 5 occasions. I've played in 2 World Cup finals, and I've had 3 test deciders. And sometimes it's not for you. But how the answers are pretty obvious in some ways, and people don't like to hear it. But it's about numbers and finance. Most things in life are about physics, aren't they? And that's what it's down to. And the quick way is going to be to just have as many players as you can playing in the NRL. I've seen in the World Cup the number of players playing in the Premiership and all the top leagues. And I was watching Arsenal fan TV, as I do for comedy, and they were talking about how they think Arsenal would win the World Cup just because there's more world-class players they thought in Arsenal team. I don't agree, but when you think about it, a team like Man City or Man United, it's probably harder to get into the Man United team and the Man City team than it is to get into the England team. Because it's about numbers, isn't it? About numbers and number of players playing and what they're being paid. And we look at the NRL now, you know what I mean? It's like, wow, you could become a millionaire playing in the NRL. You know what I mean? So everyone's gravitating towards that. And I say that some of the records that I've created in rugby league are never going to be broken, primarily for the reason that, players of a certain caliber will probably not stay in the English game, for that long. If they're doing amazing things, they're going to be, siphoned off into, the French competition, or they're going to be, playing in the Premiership, or they're going to be playing in the NRL. And if you get enough players playing in the NRL, then you're going to have more chance of winning the World Cup, and that's basically the long and short of it, if you're asking me. But it's not something that people like to hear. You look at a franchise like the UFC, MMA fighters were getting paid a pittance, and a lot of them to this day still paid a pittance. But then you've got people like Conor McGregor, you've got people like Paddy Pimblett, you've got people like John Jones who are multi-millionaires. Everyone doesn't have to be earning $1 million, but if there's that's why people play the lottery. Well, everyone wins the lottery, but people play it, and the lottery, which has done a lot for grassroots sports, let me add, with all the investment that's put in. I didn't realise the National Lottery had put in £5.7 billion into grassroots sport since its inception in 1994. And we've seen
it's incredible.
Money does talk. So if you've got the chance to become a millionaire, that alone will make you want to play a sport because of that aspirational factor. When the players who are playing are earning less than the people watching, your sport is not aspirational, because why would I want to do what you did? You know what I mean? I go back to the amphitheatres of Rome. Even the people who fought in the Colosseum, if they fought well and went through everything, if they got to the end of their careers, they were effectively the millionaires of their time, because, whoever was the emperor at the time would give them, a mansion. They would have, their own harem. They would have riches, because they pleased the emperor of the time. And that is I know it's ancient, but that is the mentality. You go into it, you're prepared to die. Those who are about to die salute you, if you know at the end of it there's riches. You know what I mean? But sometimes at the end of the rugby league journey, there's not riches. You know what I mean? Yeah, you've got a good career. You earn maybe 200,000 a year or whatever. But at the end of it, you're not Ronaldo. You're not that. Whereas they see that for the top players in the NRL, and I've said that many times. To umpteen people within the RFL, but sometimes that's not a message that is very palatable, not one that people want to hear, because they're thinking, we haven't got them, so what do I do? You know what I mean? You can bring in as many consultants as you want. You can, dress it up and have as many cheerleaders and make it, but at the end of the day, you know what I mean? There are people playing. When I say this, people don't get it. I say there are people playing Super League today who don't earn as much as Ellery Hanley earned in the 80s. I guarantee, I say that with 100% conviction. There are people playing the sport of rugby league today in 2022 who are not earning more than Ellery, not even say more, they're not earning as much as Ellery Hanley did in the 1980s. And when I say that to people, that blows people. And
that is incredible. One of those myths, I think. Yeah, one of the myths is that whenever an athlete retires, they must come out with a healthy bank account because they played professional sport. And the myth around many sports is that you don't have to work afterwards. The reality is you do have to work afterwards. You have to fund your way somehow. You've got bills to pay.
Absolutely.
How did you get?
But the beauty of that question is that, because I've experienced both sides of that, because that was my perception as well. My perception, but sometimes that is the perception which, even if it's true, does not help you. And that is the mind shift to get you. Because when I retired, I did, the rugby player thing. I made investments. I didn't spend all my money, bought properties. I was of the perception that I went into sport to rugby thinking I'm going to be the best rugby player I can be, see what it takes me. My perception is that, yes, during your career, you should earn enough money, make investments, and then you live the rest of your life living off that. Yeah. And, apart from doing a few reality TV shows and whatever, working for Sky Sports, doing a few things, punditry, whatever, that was my life until I'd say around about 2014, and then, if you think that it's the end, because that's the end, isn't it? You think, I've come to the end. I've earned all the money I need to earn. I don't need to work again. So if you don't need to work again, what do? It's like then only negativity is why are you gonna get up in the morning? As I said, I got up at 5 o'clock this morning. I had a cold shower. I did some exercise. I went for a run. If you're not on a grind, you don't do that. You know what I mean? You just, I used to think it was a badge of honor being able to lie in bed till 11 o'clock thinking to myself, I'm earning my investments, my property, I'm earning money. People talk about passive income. That's what we go in life. You try and turn income into capital, back into income. That's how that, and then you get the freedom. And I thought that was it. But it wasn't. It wasn't because, I got overweight. You drink, you do negative things. You know what I mean? So you do have to have a drive. You do have to have a passion. You do have to create something else that gets you out. And for me, it was, having children. They saved me. I was DJing the beef. I was doing all sorts of wild and wonderful things. I was acting. I was on Strictly Come Dancer, doing all these other things. I thought, life is great. But then it wasn't. It wasn't. Those things, as anyone sportsman tells you, sometimes the sportsmen who have to go into a job because they need to pay the rent, sometimes that's a good thing because it keeps you on straight and narrow. If you've got, imagine that you retire from sport, you've got 2 million, 10 million, 50 million. Sometimes a blessing can be a curse because then you just go, what am I going to do? I'm just going to go and drink. I'm going to go and get overweight. I'm going to go and do negative things. So it's all about, as you said, as we touched on earlier, it's all about how you react to what happens to you. What happens to you in your life doesn't really matter. What matters is how you react to the things that happen in your life, whether they're good or bad. People have won the lottery and killed themselves. People have won the lottery and it's been the worst thing that's ever happened to them. Go figure that.
Yeah.
There are multi-millionaires who have killed themselves. Figure that one out. Doesn't make sense because people always think that, not having the biggest problem in life, people think, is not having enough money. That's people who don't have enough money. Even people who have money think that their biggest problem in life is not having enough money. You know what I mean? So it goes on and on and on. So it's like you have to kind of separate yourself from that and just go, it's about, being healthy. The most important thing in life is to be healthy. Be healthy. That is the most important thing. Because if you're not healthy, nothing else matters, does it?
I had a conversation with a young footballer, and he was probably 19 when we had this conversation. This is going back a few years ago as well. This is about the turn of the millennium, 2000, 2001 maybe. And I asked him what his aspirations were. Now, this kid was about to get a transfer for several £1 million from our club to another one. He was going to be financially very, very well off. So I said to him, what are you going to do, when you retire out of football eventually? And he said, what I want to do is become a fat bastard. He said, I want to sit on the edge of a bar, I want to drink and eat crisps and do nothing else. And I thought, to me, that sounds like absolute hell. Because one of the challenges, I think, when athletes retire is that there's an identity challenge. Who the hell am I then if I'm not a rugby player, a footballer, etc. The other one is a lack of meaning. If you're not doing something meaningful, then there's a huge void in life. And I think that really screws a lot of people up.
Yes. You just have to be constantly figuring it out. That's the thing about life. and sport and everything, you have, you can't give somebody else the answers. Because in my sort of early parenting and in my life, as I tried to be an agent for a little bit, and I thought to myself, if you just do this, do that, do this, do that, you're going to be successful. But you can't give somebody the answers. They have to figure it out. You can say, look, this is what. That's why in life it's all about sharing stories. If anyone hears now that you share your story, this is how I started off. This is all the things I went through. This is what happened to me, and you just share that story, and it either resonates with somebody or it doesn't resonate with somebody. But everyone has to figure it out for themselves, and that's what you. And even if you don't know what it is you'll figure out, you just know there's something to figure out. And as you search, so how you find, you know what I mean? And that's the thing is that, whether it's reading books or it's talking to people, it's having conversations, whatever it does, you figure it out. And that's basically what you always have to do through life. You're on a pitch. We're one try down. It's 10 minutes to go. I want to win this game. What do you have to do? You have to figure it out. And I used to love figuring out. The greatest problem. I think to myself, man, if I can get on the end of something here, I know if I could score a try, and I did it, and on many occasions, not every time, but on many occasions, you figure it out. And when you figure it out, you get such a rush of emotion. It's the greatest. Figuring it out is the greatest joy in the world. I've just figured out how to, and I constantly have to keep reminding myself of that. The greatest joy in life is figuring it out, whatever it is. Whether it's a puzzle, a problem, overcoming that thing, you figure it out. Whatever it is in that moment, you figured it out. Learning to juggle now, but it's only fleeting, isn't it? Then you constantly have to be figuring it out, and that's the joy. Can I do that? Can I constantly figure out things? And the more you figure out, and the bigger problems you figure out, the greater joy it is, and you help other people figure it out. So what I do now is not give people information, but give them the tools to figure things out. That's what I say. In life, you don't want to create followers, you want to create more leaders. And that's why what I've always tried to do, and that is figure it out. And that's my purpose. It's like, it's trying to just to figure stuff out, whatever's in front of you constantly, help. Now it's to help people. At first, it was creating a legacy. I went from a skinny black kid who didn't have a dad who played rugby, didn't have a legacy in rugby. A fire didn't mean anything. But I've gone from that to, try to play for England, didn't get picked. It's an amateur game, wanted to go to play professional rugby league, created that legacy, and then, I've been retired longer than I played. And I said, that's the beauty of it. When someone walks up to me, I smile. What makes me smile every single day is when I just walk down the street, okay, any street, and someone goes to me, you mind a fire? And I go, yeah. And it makes me smile because I think to myself, wow, that's what it is about. It's about creating a legacy. When I was on that pitch, I was doing something that connected with people. People go to me, you know what? Because people always ask me, what do you like, rugby union, rugby league? I say, it's not about that. It's just about being remembered. It's about someone coming to me and go, I don't even like rugby. But I used to with my granddad or with my dad, I used to watch grandstand, and we used to see this player, and even like some, because when apparently Sky Sports, when it started, they used to feed into South Africa, and England were playing South Africa, and there was a South African retired player, I can't even remember his name. He said to me, I remember when we was in the in the township, and they used to put Sky Sports on, and we didn't even know what rugby league was, but we used to see this black guy running down the pitch. I'm thinking, wow, that is like what life's about. You know what I mean? It's like they don't even got a clue what it is or whatever, but you're connecting with them because of that. And I always say that, you can't connect to everyone, but you can connect to some people. And if you go out and give it the best version of yourself, you're connecting with people you don't even know. We don't even know the people are going to be watching this podcast, but with one person, it might, if one person comes up to us in the future, maybe 20 years ago, goes, oh, I remember watching that podcast that you did. That really inspired me. Just that's what it is. That's the currency of life that keeps you, that's the currency you get back in it. When they say what goes around comes around, that's what it means. That 20 years ago, I did something that connected with somebody enough for them to remember, to have that effect. Because, mate, I can't remember what I had for dinner in January 2017. You know what I mean? But I can remember where I was when Johnny Wilson kicked that goal, you know what I mean, to win the World Cup. I'm never going to forget that. You know, so it's about those emotional connections. And then that's, you know, going on to business. That's what I've turned into a business. People think that's, you know, because like for so many years, like I'd be in traffic jams and whatever. And I even remember stories when I first met my wife and she didn't know that I was, you know, much about rugby or whatever. And you know, I used to walk down the street and people go, "You're right, mine." And she goes, "Do you know him?" I'm like, "No." She goes, "Why is he saying hello to you?" That's how I used to be. I'm trying to fit. And then even to this day, I used to go to dinners, you know, do the whole dinner circuit. And, you know, people come to me, "Oh, can I have a picture?" Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, so when I joined Connected Curb, who are the company that I'm working with now, you know, I sat down and I thought to myself, you know, I'm in this room with all these people who know so much about sustainability and you know, God, you know, the jargon and the technology, and, you know, I didn't know what an LOI was from an NDA. I'm just thinking, Jesus, you know what I mean? But I'm thinking to myself, there's got to be something which you know, you've got to find your niche, you know, find that thing, you know, because as I said in a rugby pitch, you know, I thought to myself, I could learn from Eliani, I could learn from Sean Edwards. And I met Chris Ashton the other day and at the rugby, and, you know, I've never met Chris Ashton in my life, but from seeing him talk, from seeing him on the pitch, I said, and I know that he's from Wigan, I'm thinking, I know this guy. Yeah. I know where this guy is coming from. You're communicating with me. You're telling me stuff I know. You know what I mean? That's what's it. And then I never met him. And Chris Ashton is 30 odd now. You know what I mean? On that similar, you know, obviously I came from Union, went to League. He came from League, went to Union. Obviously, I've seen the way he plays, the try scores. I know. I say, this is the Wigan man. You're doing what I'm doing. When I met him, imagine that. And that's another thing, a beautiful thing, when two famous people or two people of note don't know each other, never met each other. That's when they say game recognises game, isn't it? You know, these American slang, stuff like that. And you smile, you both smile, right? You've never met each other. I've been alive for 56 now, 56 years. He's been alive for 30 odd years. We've never met each other. Yet again, just from them watching him on TV, watching him play for England, doing stuff, I'm thinking, and you know, he says, I just smile at him, and I do that, and he says, "Yeah, I know," you know what I mean? And I say to myself, and he did a little message for my son Tyler, who's not spy, because if I tell Tyler stuff now, he ain't gonna get it, he ain't gonna listen to me. I'm his dad. You know, he don't care about statues, he don't care about MBEs, he don't care about 501 tries. I'm his dad. But if Chris Ashton says something to him, he's more likely to listen. So Chris Ashton sent a message that says, "Tyler, I learned from him." You know, I've never met Chris Ashton before in my life, and he said, "You've told me that." No one said that. That's just that him. I've watched this guy's career. I can see what he's doing the same way that I see with Ellery. I see, you know what I mean? I'm not thinking, that's where you learned. You know, there's a way. So you figure it out. So if someone else, you know what I mean, whatever you've done in life, you know, someone else somewhere has probably done it, and they've probably written a book about it. I've written a book about scoring tries. No one's read it. Or no, some people have read it, not me. But I'm thinking that it's there. You know what I mean? So unless you get into that and understand that, I know you ain't going to do what I've done, because I figured it out.
That's it. I'm always interested to know the sort of the skills that people take from sport into business. And obviously it's not throwing a ball. That's not the skill that you take from sport into business, or you know, kind of outstepping an opponent or anything like that. That's not the skill you take. But problem solving sounds like a skill that you've taken from sport into business, and the ability to connect with people.
Yes, totally, absolutely. I call myself, in the business world, I am like human blockchain. I'm human blockchain. That's basically what I see myself. I'm that kind of credibility factor. I know him, you know me. Yeah, you know, people have said to me, "Oh, I looked at the company and the sort of amount of fires involved." So I thought, oh, there must be something about it. You know, life is about opportunity, curiosity, emotional connection. Whatever you're in, whether it's meeting your missus, doing whatever, it's opportunity. If you didn't see it, if it's not, you know, how did this come about? It came from opportunity. Someone reached out to me. You know, I could have either said yes or no. Why did you say yes? Because you're curious. I'm curious. I think, you know, I see that Tom May's involved. You know, I've seen it. Oh, it's on Spotify. Oh, it must be, you know, whatever. You know what I mean? So you're curious. You try and find out, and then it leads to an emotional connection. Now we've met, we talk, we bond. we've read the same either books, we come from the same path, we're both humans. That's why you can always connect with people on a human level. You know, two rugby players in a bar anywhere in the world will have a beer, they will connect because the same values, you know what I mean, are there. You know what I mean? You've got to be brave. You've got to be a nice person. If you try and get too big for your boots, then you know what I mean, they will shut you down. But if you bring it, you could do what you want. You know what I mean? If you are that guy, then people will give you the time of day because, you know what I mean? If you're bringing money, you know what I mean? If I play with you and you're a great player, I'm going to put up with stuff. If you ain't that great, you know, what happens with clubs? A player is a bit of a you know, whatever that you call your word you want to use to describe him. You ain't that great, they're getting rid of you, aren't they? If you're amazing and you're going to make us win the championship, we're going to persevere. A bit like you know what I mean? Or a bit like a very attractive woman, you know what I mean? You get rid of her, someone else is going to give her the time of day. A good player, even in some other club, are going to give him the time of day, aren't they? They're going to try because they're going to try and think to themselves, oh, well, maybe I can change them. Maybe I can get through to them if they've got enough talent. Understanding these things. That's what I say in life. You've got to understand your true value and, you know, understand your story. And it's important. And so it's those mental things you take in. So when I'm thinking to myself, what can I bring to that? I'm thinking, well, I'm Mark Fire. That's basically all I had. But it wasn't. It was just a thing. So I think to myself, when I'm having those conversations, you know, and what is the number one question that any sportsman who has achieved anything gets asked? I'll tell you what it is, and they all know what you're doing now. That is the number one question any sportsman who has retired gets asked. Yeah, and you know what I mean, and that's what advice I'll give to. So know your story as a sportsman. Know your story. Know all what you've been through from the day you know went to you know your first time, even before that. You know what I mean? I used to think to myself, my story started off at primary school playing kiss chase and British Bulldog. That's where my stuff, because people don't realise that's evasion skills. That's, you know, desire. You know what I mean? That's where also you grow. You know, skill is a belief is a skill. You build on success, everything. You build it in and you grow it. Know your story. And if you've created a legacy, that's your worth. And whatever you want to do with it, you know, whatever you do, and the bigger your legacy, the easier it is, whether that's helping people or doing whatever. If you can connect with people and you're a nice person, you're welcoming. Imagine that now. You know, if David Beckham walks into a room now, how many conversations is he going to have? If Cristiano Ronaldo walks into how many conversations is he going to have if he's got a smile on his face and is engaging? You're going to go and say hello to him. And if you've been retired a few years and you didn't know what he was doing, you're going to say, oh, Ronaldo, what are you doing now? So I say, what am I doing now? I'm involved in sustainability. I'm brand ambassador for electric vehicle charging infrastructure. This is what I do now. And then electric vehicles are something which is going to affect everybody. So anyone who's involved in that industry, whether that is investment, sales, connections, whatever that is, then you have that connection. And then I say, oh, here's my business card. Let's set up a meeting. You've created something.
Even with all that, though, you're not guaranteed to be successful. You know, not everything you touch is going to turn to gold. And I mean, I suspect with your properties and stuff like that, there've been some stuff that's worked, some that haven't. And what have you learned along the way? And particularly, what have you taken out of those things that didn't work?
Everything that you had in your sporting career. It's like every sportsman, you've got a ready-made vehicle to use. So you just need a bit of reflection, a bit of things that have happened well, you know, talking to people, talking to other sportsmen that have retired. You know what I mean? When you go to these dinners, engage with other sportsmen, learn what they are, because everyone's open to sharing, you know, so you learn from, you've got a ready-made resource, which is your career, regardless of whether that career was successful or unsuccessful. And you think, what do I learn? I persevere, you know, in my properties, you know, mate, I've lost £250,000 in some things. But if you give up, you use that and think, okay, well, next time, you only have to be right, you know, 75% of the time to be a legend or an icon or whatever you want in sport. If you're right 75% of the time, mate, you're an icon. You know what I mean? Some people, that word legend gets banded around. I don't even know what it means. I think my definition of, because, I always hear this, on every podcast, on every, the icon, the legend. And then you can hear some sportsmen embrace it, some shy away from it because you think, they think, oh, well, it's easy when you've kicked the drop goal in the final of the World Cup, or you have, you've earned £20 million, or you are the GOAT of your sport, or you're this. But if I don't know, because when you've been successful after sport, that's a different thing. Once that thing finishes, you retire, it's a whole new ball game. And so you get to reinvent yourself again and be successful. And there's some great successes. Some people are not having necessarily, the greatest career, but they have used that because their mindset, and they have been. There's some players, who have got ex-sportsmen have got property portfolios. They're far wealthier as retired sportsmen and rugby players than some sportsmen who are, the GOATs of their sport. Sometimes, as I say, a blessing could be a curse can be a blessing. It's about how you think and how you reinvent yourself, and you figure out that second problem.
Yeah, good point on the word legend. I called John Wilkin a legend in our last series. He just, I think you're right. He just didn't understand it. He's like,
he didn't understand it.
I don't know what that word means.
They haven't probably given it there because maybe the way that they're judging it is different to the way they almost feel embarrassed and shy about it, or I never hide your light under a bushel. You know what I mean? If you say you're a legend, then you are a legend. If John Wilkins says he's a legend, he's a legend, regardless of what anyone else says. That's what some people don't realise, is that it's not about what anyone else thinks. It's about what John Wilkins. In my eyes, John Wilkins is a legend, mate. Because when I see him, I have a memory of him. Yeah, him with his bandaged face, playing. I think I can't remember when it was in the Challenge Cup final or Grand Final, but I have a memory of him. You know what I mean? If you say someone's name and I have no memory of you, then in my eyes, that's how you are a legend. Because you could become a legend for something you do good or something you do badly. You know what I mean? It could be, some people, I think I was at a dinner lunch it was the other day, and I think the speaker was Steve Borthwick. Who dropped the ball over the line in the dropped the ball over the line in the World Cup final in 2003.
I think you're right. I think it was.
Yeah. And he's a legend because remember that because he dropped the ball over the line. If he'd have scored that try, then we probably wouldn't have had all the drama at the end, and Johnny Wilkinson wouldn't have kicked the goal. So he's a legend. That's what I say. If you are remembered, when you play sport, if you are loved and hated, then you've won, as far as I'm concerned. If you are, that's what I say. I just want to be remembered. That's the thing. You know what I mean? It's better to be remembered for something good than something bad. But if you've had, imagine that you played professional rugby, professional cricket, or professional football for 10 years, okay? And then on your 90th birthday, when you pass away, no one remembers you. To me, that would make me sad. You know what I mean? But if you played sport for 10 years, 15 years, on your 90th birthday, you pass away, you're at Twickenham or you're at Wembley, your face comes up on the tannoy, they have a minute's silence for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's when you're smiling up there.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? How do you get that?
Yeah.
How do you get that? It's not about winning, is it? It's not about... That's about people remembering you fondly. That's what life's about. It's about emotions. My dad wrote a book many years ago, which I didn't really read through my rugby career, but I read it not too long ago, called Understanding Your Emotions. And I thought, God, a lot of this is what, so he obviously had programmed me with a lot of things which I wasn't even aware of, which I through my life. And I'm thinking, God, life is about programming. It's, about drip feeding constant messages into you. It's about having that information in your brain, and then somehow it's there. You use it, figure it out, and makes you the man you are. But it's not so much about what you achieve. It's not about the numbers. It's not about the numbers. It's about the person you are, because the person you are is what people connect with when they see how you are on the pitch. and you connect with someone in a village watching a TV in a developing country who then goes on to become something and connects with you randomly in an airport in Dubai. Wow. That's what life is about. That's what, and so I say to my son, it's like, that is the force, isn't it? You know, and I can, when I used to watch Star Wars, Star Wars, isn't it? And you're creating a Jedi.
Star Wars,
Star Wars, that's what you're trying to become. How do you teach someone to become a Jedi? And they say the force is strong in that one. It's about opening up your mind. It's about being humble. It's about learning. It's like realizing that we all have a superpower, but not all of us can connect with it. Yeah. And that's how you create things that you're a superhuman, isn't it? I've scored 501 tries, mate. There's only 3 people in the history of the sport have scored 501 tries, and probably no one has scored 500 tries again. That's superhuman. If you hadn't done it, people would have thought it could not be done. That's superhuman, isn't it? Doing something that lots of other humans cannot do. That's the definition of a superhero. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And like you said, the greater impact is that actually you go on to inspire others. You know, what you do has an impact on them. A friend of mine talked about throwing pebbles in a pond that sent out ripples. And so you might affect one person, but they go on to affect 2 or 3 others. And the more you do that, the more pebbles you throw in the pond, the more ripples you send out, the more impact you have on the world. Brilliant. Look, I can see the clock ticking away here. Tom usually asks 4 questions at the end of this, but it's down to me. And this has been a really inspiring conversation. I've got a funny feeling that these 4 questions aren't going to be the most inspiring that we've asked today. The first one is, if you weren't a rugby player, what would you have become? Is there another vocation that would have grabbed you, taken your interest?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one, because it's like saying to Cristiano Ronaldo, what would you be? It's like saying to Pele, you literally have to burn the bridges, and you literally have to be obsessed with it. So if you're obsessed with everything and you burn the bridges, and it's like this or it kills me, then it's hard to then have that reflection and think of whatever, because I might, people say, oh yeah, but I'm saying I'm Martin of Fire. That means something. It means something to me. It means something to I see little kids now, you know what I mean, who Black History Month would go, and they're not even alive when I'm born, but they're, it's their dad or their granddad. People have, you have affected people so much. It's so emotional that, you know what I mean? People have named their children, have had tattoos, race horses, dogs. You know what I mean? It becomes that deep. It's like you're ingrained, so you buy into that so much that it's hard to even, separate yourself from that and say, what else would I have done? But, I really don't know. I could pick something, but it doesn't really mean
I heard Mark. Yeah, I heard Mark Cavendish, the cyclist, give an answer to this, and he said, if I wasn't a cyclist, I'd have been trying to become a cyclist, and that was the answer. So yeah, that's cool. Second question: who do you kind of look up to? Who's your real inspiration in sport and business?
In sport and business, well, in sport, I would definitely say, people like, Michael Jordan. But some of that is, retrospective. I'm thinking when I was young, I think I didn't really have sort of, I used to see people like Gareth Edwards, Phil Bennett, people I wanted to be like. But there were people I wanted to be like, and, Muhammad Ali, I was influencing, but I was too focused on my own journey, doing what I wanted to do. My biggest hero was probably my brother. He's the reason for my success, because he was 3 years older than me, better at me than everything, more intelligent than me, better looking than me, faster than me. People don't realise I didn't win I'm one of 3 children. I didn't win a race in my whole childhood between me and my 2 siblings, and people don't understand that. I did not win a single race. My sister was a year older than me. I used to come 3rd all the time. I only beat my brother in a race when I was 23. I just come back from tour. I think I've been 22, 23. Just come back from Australia, scored a try against Australia in the 3rd test. I think 2nd try, scored an amazing try, 3/4 length of the pitch against the Kangaroos, went outside Gary Jack, and I thought to myself, Chike, you're having it today. Imagine that in the street, as we had done as children. Mate, I should have, there was no video cameras or anything back then, so we're talking like, 1988, this was. And I only just beat him, mind you. So I said, I owe my brother for everything. He taught me everything. He never let me win, would never let me win. I thought he was being horrible to me. I thought he was a horrible brother. I thought, why wouldn't you let me win? But I never gave up. And I just, I remember the summer of '76 when the West Indies toured. And I remember, we used to watch the Test match for 5 days, that hot summer, as people of that age will remember. I remember bowling at him all day, and I remember getting them out, because I used to think to myself, if I bowl at this guy all day, eventually he's going to have to get an edge, and he'd edge one, and then it would go to the back. We used to play, if you got an edge and it went back to the cage, you're out. And I get an edge. I think, until you put it on the length, so that teaches you thinking like, imagine that. This is a 10-year-old kid having the mindset of, if I just keep putting it on a length, eventually he's going to get an edge. That's a powerful thing to know, isn't it? That's a powerful thing to know at the age of 10. But I only learned that because I was determined to get him out. So I'd say my brother is all I looked up to.
You got what it takes to make a test bowler as well. With that attitude, I tell you, that's
well. I tell you,
I
did play cricket. Was my first professional sport. I went to cricket. I had a picture with Graham Gooch the other day. I think it was the day that the Queen died, or the day that they thought she was going to die, and was at the cricket, the test match, and there was no cricket all day. The play was rained off. Gooch was there, and I always remind him that I bowled him out in the nets. I went down to Essex, and they had no bowling machines then. So this is '85, summer of '85. Played one second team match for Essex, a room against Sussex, and the guy called Alan Wells hit me for 6 off a half volley, and I thought, I'm not going to be a cricketer, because back in the day, this is another thing I figured out playing cricket. Even though I wasn't a great bowler, I knew that being black, if I went to the sight screen and then a long run up, and I could run fast, that's going to scare a lot of batsmen. Imagine that. That's what was my thinking. I'm thinking, if I go I'm going to get wickets. If I just run up fast and put it down, I'm going to get wickets, because they're going to be thinking, you know what I mean? It's only that when I went to play proper cricket, I realised that he's like, mate, I've been to the West Indies, half volley, hit me for 6. I'm thinking, maybe this is, bowling all day, not for me. I actually enjoyed playing rugby. That's another thing I learned. Do the things you love, not the things you're good at. Even though I was good at cricket, I knew that I loved rugby, so I should go and play rugby. Because obviously cricket was a professional sport. Rugby was not was the amateur sport. So obviously I was thinking, I want to be a professional sportsman. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go and play rugby. Someone's going to give me a job. That was just what I thought. If I get good at rugby, somebody's going to give me a job. And that was my mindset. But I got a long-winded answer. But my brother, my whole brother, but I was focused on my own journey. But in business, I would say definitely Richard Branson, because he employed me. Frank Warren, because he employed me at Bedford. But I'd have to say, my biggest inspiration business-wise is my friend Richard Clements, who gave me an opportunity at Connected Curb, which is an electric vehicle charging infrastructure company. I'm the brand ambassador. And when I'm in meetings, I talk as passionately about sport and have stories as I do, about my journey into sustainability. Andy Gomsall gave me lifting and EV. I thought, wow, what are these things? Bought one, learned about them, and I can talk about my journey, my 3-year journey of buying an EV and understanding about infrastructure. Why you charge, where you charge, what does range anxiety feel like? Not only what does it mean intellectually, what does it feel like emotionally? And so that's taught me a lot. So I owe Richard Clemens a great deal, because he ignited that passion in me, which came purely to pay private school fees, because if I didn't send my kid to a private school, I was set for life. But school fees are a lot of money, let me tell you. So sometimes it's not what happens to you in your life, it's how you react to the things that happen to you in your life. Again, figure it out. If you've got problems, get emotional and figure it out.
Brilliant. Third one, if you had a few quid to invest, what would you invest it into?
The future. Obviously, you invest in the future, always. Predict what the future is going to be and then invest in it. You know what I mean? If you was, 20 years ago, you should have invested in flat screen TVs. You should have invested in Bitcoin. Now, what's the future? Sustainability. The government has said that by 2030, we are getting rid of fossil fuel cars. So it's a no-brainer. It's sustainability, climate change. That's invest in that. So that's what I'm invested in now. I'm an investor in Connected Curb. So that's what you need to invest in.
Yeah, that's not a massive surprise to me, that answer, and I think it's bob on the money as well. Last one. If you could only watch one film for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Why are we on this planet, man? Why are we on this planet? You have to ask yourself, why are we on this planet? Ask yourself that question. When you get the answer, then you'll know the movie that you should watch. Yeah, we're on this planet, and when I say these things because I believe them. Because when you talk passionately about things, people always think, no, that's not right, because for everything I can say, that's why Twitter is like it is, because no matter what you think, someone thinks something differently with as much passion. That's why wars start. You know what I mean? So it's just when you talk about capacity, that's just because you believe it. So I believe that we are on this planet to feel emotions. That's what we're down there. It's like someone saying up there, do you want to go down to earth and have all these experience love, anger, joy, elation, euphoria, not the better ones, but anger, and you want to be able to control those emotions and use them on your journey to inspire it and fuel it. That's why we're here. So whatever movie that makes you feel as many emotions as you can, it's not about, me trying to be clever, because sometimes people try to be clever and I can give you an answer, which is like, oh, well, that's really clever. But yeah, some things that are clever, when you actually experience it, you think, oh, actually, well, it wasn't so great after all. So be genuine to your emotions. So it's going to be different. So the movie that I want to watch is not the movie someone else want to watch. So when I ask myself, I think to myself, let's make it a classic, nothing too great these things. And I would say Casablanca, because for me, that is a movie that I can remember that it's got so many emotions that I felt in it, and the main emotion what I feel is love, isn't it? Love and connection, love and connection, but then also that separation, that longing. Because if you only felt love, sometimes the longing is pleasurable as well. That's why I say it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved before. Yeah, because some people love, whether it's a sport of rugby, and then you can spend the whole time thinking about, I felt that person, I love that person, and maybe I should have treated that more, maybe I should have done more of that, and then the next time I feel that I'm going to do this. So something that gives you emotion. And Casablanca, man, that's an emotional film, you know what I mean? Some of them when it's against
absolutely
being in that and the smoke and it's black and white, and so because obviously most of your life is in colour. So when I experience black and white, so that is because for me, sport's about emotion, and that's brilliant.
You're right. Good movies definitely do that to you, Martin. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very, very much indeed. Very much looking forward to hopefully meeting up at some point, grabbing a beer, because I'm love another conversation. Be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
You're listening to Podium Podcast with Simon Hartley and Tom May. This is the show that invites the world's top athletes to discuss life in and after professional sport. Podium Podcast is brought to you by True Potential Wealth Management. To find out more, visit domorewithyourmoney.co.uk.